Well, the organization started in November of 1949, which interestingly enough was the start of the Department of Defense as well. When we started out in the basement of the Pentagon, where the new Department of Defense was also headquartered. We started out with the Navy, and we've been with the Navy Supply Systems Command. We were under that organization for many, many years. Interestingly enough, when we first started out, we were the first, what they called at that time, industrially funded organization. Today it's called the Defense Capital Working Fund. So we were the first industrially funded organization in the Department of Defense. And that means the organization ran in a very business-like manner. We charged for our services, and those revenues that were generated from those charges for the services offset all the expenses of the organization. So it was a self-contained business within the Department of Defense. It was in 1979. Jimmy Carter was the president, and he issued an executive order that is still in place today, making our organization the president's printers, what they say, but actually we're more than printers, but yes, the folks that support the president. And so that's just an interesting aspect that a lot of people don't know. Here's just another interesting aspect. Again, these are just things that your audience might find interesting. The Pentagon's a really big building and an important building to the Department of Defense. There's only one DLA activity that has an office in that building and a presence in that building, and that's DLA Document Services. DLA doesn't have any other offices in that building. And we've been in the Pentagon since 1949. We took up most of the basement at that time. That was back in the old days when presses and so forth, it was a pretty big operation. Then in October of 1996, we went from the Navy, being organized under the Navy, and we were transferred to Defense Logistics Agency in October of 1996. And we've been with DLA ever since. We started out with being printers, and that was a very important aspect in the Department of Defense in 1949 because it was the primary way of communicating. But over the years, the means that we provided access and distribution of documents changed because of technology. And so the mission evolved from one of document services that just involved the printing process to one that used technology, inserted technological solutions from industry and applied them within the Department of Defense to the document marketplace. Well, as I say, for many, many years, offset printing was really the primary means of our delivering documents and supporting the Department of Defense. But long about the late 70s, technology and industry, as far as documents were concerned, started really changing. And we made a strategic decision back in the late 70s to ride that wave. In other words, to take the technical solutions from the commercial sector and bring them and apply them within the Department of Defense. Well, to give you an interesting fact, in 2010, Amazon.com sold more e-books than it did hard copy books and paperback books. So e-books or digital books are really getting traction in the commercial sector. And just like any trend in the commercial sector, we try to bring those solutions to the Department of Defense. Now, there's some challenges in the Department of Defense that the commercial sector doesn't have, and that has to do with IT security. We have to make sure that the documents we're handling, which are often sensitive documents, that they are protected. We are looking at electronic books. We are doing some prototypes, particularly in the area of academics, the DoD schools, because a lot of their course material can be delivered via iPads and other devices like that. in other words, e-books type of delivery of documents. And so we're very much looking into that and doing pilots in that regard. Well, I can tell you there's generally three categories of services that we provide. We kind of lump them in three categories. The first would be offset printing, those printing presses and bindery and those types of things that you think of when you think of printing. The second category would be on-demand printing. And these are things that you would use a high-speed duplicator for, what essentially is a high-speed copying machine, very high speed. And then the third category would be online types of documents, online services. And this is where we build digital libraries of documents and then allow access by users online from anywhere in the world. And that access, of course, is restricted. It depends on what access you're allowed to have or authorized to have. But that is the third category, online documents. Well, I can tell you that the skills involved and the technology involved varies greatly between offset printing, high-speed duplication, or on-demand type services, and then online services. And so because those skills vary greatly, and because we are dynamically moving the Department of Defense toward online type services, we are constantly building skills in that regard. So we're moving from skills that are more traditional printing through skills that are electronic duplicating to skills that we're trying to build in our workforce that are more IT centric because they involve computers, databases, that type of thing. Well, I would tell you, of course, first would be October of 1996 when we became part of DLA. I think a important date or important time frame would also be the implementation of our most efficient organization, which occurred, the first year was 2003. This is where, prior to 2003, we did a OMB Circular A76 private-public competition where we actually took a large portion of our organization, the production aspect of it, in-house production aspect of it, and put that in a solicitation out for bid. And so we invited the commercial sector to bid on that. Well, the most efficient organization, or the government bid, won that bid, and so 2003 was our first year of implementation. And before that first year, there was quite a change in our organization because the personnel that we had doing production was downsized by about 29%. We also closed about maybe 25% of our locations at the time, smaller locations that we just couldn't support because the workload wasn't there. And so there was a great change in our organization just prior to 2003, during the summer of 2002. And we not only survived that change, that great change, but we've really thrived throughout the years. But I'll tell you, the ongoing challenge is staying at that leading edge, not the bleeding edge, by the way. I don't mean to take unnecessary chances or risks. What I'm talking about is staying at the leading edge of technology so that we can assess what solutions are being developed in the private sector and then bring those that make the most sense for application in the Department of Defense, bring those to the Department of Defense in a way that is cost effective. So that is a big challenge. I would tell you that the other big challenge is that development of skills, because we are bringing about a dynamic change in the Department of Defense. We are transforming, in our little world of documents, we are transforming the Department of Defense, acting as a catalyst to push our customers toward the use of online documents and all the efficiencies that that can bring. So, well, I'll tell you just a couple that the average person may not know. Remember, I told you that we were the president's printer. Okay, so when you see the president on TV giving the State of the Union address, and there folks in the audience, as well as the president, are holding up a little book that has his address in it, we printed that book. And it is often right up until game time that they are changing the text of his speech because of different last-minute changes that he feels he needs to make. And so we are right at the deadline every time that he gives a speech like that, because he has to pass out the contents of the speech to everyone. They have to have it in their hands when he gives it. So that's an interesting aspect of our business that people may not understand, that booklet that everybody is holding in the audience that is the State of the Union speech, is printed by our organization right before he walks down the aisle, or shortly before he walks down the aisle to give that speech. Whether it be the plans or the manuals that the warfighter in the field uses, or there can be rules of engagement. There are certain forms that are used by the warfighter. There are certain maps and plans that are developed and then have to be multiple copies made. And so we outfit the warfighter on their way over. And then in the field, we also have requirements that come to us. And we make the copies necessary for the customer in the field and distribute it back to them. Okay, well, in the early 2000s, in the 2000 and 2001 timeframe, we were really involved in this OMB Circular A76 public-private competition, where we were taking a very large part of our production operations and putting them in a solicitation and inviting vendors from the commercial sector to bid on our business. And the government employees had to also bid along with those commercial providers. And so there was a challenge that really was historic in our organization, because our employees were, for the first time ever, they were in threat of losing their jobs. They were really fighting for their jobs. This came at a time when we were ramping up to support the war. And so it was a challenging time, because I had to, and this organization had to keep its focus on the warfighter, keep its focus on what this mission was that we had. We're not just employees and we're not just workers. We have a higher calling and a higher mission to support the warfighter. And so we had to put this distraction of A76 competition aside, and we had to support the warfighter and make sure that we delivered on every one of the requirements that our customer gave us. I just want to leave you with, folks sometimes refer to us as the Department of Defense's printer. Well, that is accurate. That's for sure, but it is not our entire story, and you're selling us short if you stop there. Some people call us the quick copy providers of the Department of Defense. General Dale one time called us Kinkos on steroids. I don't know if that's accurate, but yes, we are the on-demand providers of documents for the Department of Defense. But again, if you just thought of us as the printers or those on-demand quick copy providers, you'd be selling us short. The fact of the matter is a very, very large portion of our business, 1/3 of it, is spent in providing those online services that support of digital documents, where a document is perhaps not printed out in hard copy paper at all, but instead is accessed digitally online. And we feel that that is really where the most efficiencies can come from. And so we are every day trying to push the Department of Defense toward that. So really, I would hope that folks listening to this video would conclude that we are really transforming the Department of Defense toward the use of those online document services and the efficiencies that those can bring to the federal government and to the Department of Defense.